the author of The Road Rules of Leadership. He spans a 30-year career and Greg has been award-winning, I better get this right, award-winning advertising executive, groundbreaking health researcher, a management trainer, university lecturer, newspaper columnist, and now CEO and founder of License to Lead. He uses the insights he's gained from his extensive experience to guide leadership growth in tough and challenging times. Greg is currently writing his next book, Care Factor 100, which will be a guide to engaging employees and strengthening culture. Would you all welcome Greg to the stage, please?
So first of all, Michael, before you go, can I just thank you for that absolutely outstanding introduction that I wrote myself. So are you having a good time tonight? Yes. So about 6 of you are. Are the rest of you having a good time tonight? Yes, we are. Well, I have to apologise in advance because I'm actually going to bring the mood of the evening down a couple of notches. I'm going to guess that most of you at some stage, what's going on, Nate? Is that okay? Can you hear me okay up there? We've got a technical difficulty. So I'm going to take a guess and figure that most of you either currently work in organisations. Some of you might own organisations. Some of you will be leaders and managers in organisations. And if there are a couple of young ones here, at some point in time, you'll actually join an organisation. I've got some bad news for you, because currently, on average, supported by research, 1 in 6 of your employees couldn't care less. Some heads nodding. Further to that, 6 out of 10 employees don't really care. Now that leaves just only 1 in 4 that are passionate and enthusiastic. Some of you remember the global financial crisis. Do you guys realise that it was actually 10 years ago? So guess what we've got now? We've actually got a global engagement crisis, and it's happening right here in front of us as we speak. My talk to you tonight is going to be about how we can create more engagement in organisations, and as a result, more happiness. More happiness for business owners and leaders, more happiness for the employees of the organisations, and also more happiness for the world in general. Because you know what? We spend about half of our waking hours at work. And if we're unhappy in our work, it rubs off and it's not a good scene. I nearly didn't make it here tonight. Half a lifetime ago, I had to make a decision about whether I stayed as a school teacher or not. And I'm only here in front of you and not in a school somewhere teaching for 2 reasons. The first reason, couldn't stand the kids. Second reason, couldn't stand the other teachers. And I've got the greatest of respect for teachers, let me tell you. I spoke at my 80-year-old mum's Probus meeting, Adamstown Ladies Probus meeting, a couple of weeks ago. And I told that same gag, just for the same purpose of getting a laugh. And at the end of the talk, I was selling books and answering some questions, and I had a great big long line of ladies coming towards me, and I thought, this is fantastic. I've obviously nailed the talk, and I can't wait till they come up and see me. They were all retired school teachers that wanted a piece of me for knocking school teachers, and nothing could be further from the truth. I think that teachers play a really important role looking after our kids. So after I decided not to be a school teacher, I went off and did a bunch of different things. And what I know about organisational success comes back to 3 foundation things. It's a little bit like this 3-legged stool. If you don't have these 3 foundation aspects to your business, you won't be as successful as what you could be. The first one is structure. It's how we slice and dice our organisation. It's who's who in the zoo and who reports to who. The most important thing about structure is that each individual knows exactly what they're responsible for and who they're responsible to. Now, in a 15-year business consultancy career, many of the problems that I see when I walk into an organisation are that they lack structure. So that's the first leg of the three-legged stool. If we move on to something that's a little bit more complex, and that is strategy. So that's the purpose or the vision of the organisation, and that then cascades down into key result areas and KPIs and action plans. And again, it's really important that organisations get their why, their purpose and their vision really, really clear and they involve their people in it. So the first two legs of that three-legged stool are structure and strategy. But the third one eats them both for breakfast. And that's the culture of our organisations. And that's largely what I'm going to talk to you about tonight. Now, there are many aspects that go to make up your organisation's culture. It can be the organisation's values, whether we stick to those values or not. It's how we talk to each other, how we treat each other, and generally the way things are done in an organisation. But there's one subset of organisational culture that I think is super important. It's a bit of a buzzword, and it's this, employee engagement. Now, I want to encourage a little bit of audience participation. Put your hand up if you've heard the term employee engagement. About a third of the room. Someone who's got their hand up or who's heard of it before, what do you reckon it means? It's not a test, by the way. It's just debunking this bit of jargon to try and understand. What do you reckon employee engagement means? Someone yell it out. So we're communicating with each other. If
a feeling of ownership in the enterprise.
Yeah, okay. So put it another way, think about an organisation that has high levels of employee engagement. What kind of things are you going to see? You're certainly going to see effective communication. You're certainly going to see people who are taking ownership, perhaps of their own behaviours, but also the success of the organisation. Let's flip that a little bit and say, what about an organisation that has high levels of disengagement? What kind of behaviours are we going to see? So we're going to see high staff turnover. People don't like it and they're going to turn over. We're probably going to see high levels of absenteeism. Okay, so every second Monday someone doesn't turn up. The boss's car has been egged. Yeah, so morale is low. Okay, so I'm sure some of you are familiar with the kind of characteristics of disengagement, but hopefully engagement. I'm going to keep it really simple for you, and I'm going to suggest to you that employee engagement means what is an employee's care factor? Is their care factor high or is it low? And in fact, I remember the day I was working with the CEO of one of my clients, and we'd been strategising and planning around an activity to improve the culture and improve the levels of engagement. And we decided it was time that we stopped talking and we go and engage some of the employees. We walked down to the shop floor and we gathered a few of them together. These were the frontline workers. And we started talking to them about the ideas that we come up with to build culture, to improve the culture and to build engagement. And one of the guys there was particularly disengaged. He wouldn't give us any eye contact, and his body language was just that he was really disinterested. And when the CEO said to him, "Is everything okay?" he said, "Mate, my care factor is 0. And I remember thinking, how sad is that? I don't think it gets any sadder in an organisation when an employee says, "I couldn't care less." So as Michael said in my introduction, I'm currently working on a new book called Care Factor 100. And it's going to be about how we can lift levels of engagement in organisations, and we can get 100% of our people 100% engaged. Now, I did a talk about this recently, and someone said, "You'll never achieve it, you'll never get 100%. And I said, maybe not, but that's not going to stop me trying. So in a few minutes, I'm going to share the 5 foundation principles that you can walk away with tonight. And if you have the passion and the enthusiasm, you can start to put some of these in place tomorrow. But before we get to that, I want to talk to you about how bad this global engagement crisis is. And I actually want to share with you some really robust data from around the world. Gallup Consulting are the international gurus in measuring levels of engagement. Each year, they interview hundreds of thousands of employees and managers across hundreds of countries around the world, including Australia and New Zealand. So their research is very robust. Now, they divide employees up into a couple of categories, and I'm going to introduce those categories to you tonight. This is Motivated Mike. Motivated Mike is passionate and enthusiastic. Mike goes beyond what he's asked to do. His care factor is high. Has anyone got a motivated Mike in your workplace? Don't tell me. 2 hands, 3 hands, thank you. 4 hands, good stuff. This is Snoozy Susie. Susie Snoozy is asleep at the wheel. In fact, Gallup say that these people who aren't engaged almost walk through the organisation sleepwalking. Their care factor is not high at all. And in fact, I've got a subcategory here. This is, I could go either way, Renee. Okay, so she's also not engaged. Sometimes she cares, sometimes she doesn't. But the worst one that I want to introduce to is, I couldn't care less, Wes. So Les's care factor is 0. He's actively disengaged. He really does not care about the organisation that he works for. In fact, he might even sabotage some of what goes on. He's the one who starts the rumours and throws petrol on the gossips and loves it when chaos is caused. Now, I bet you're interested in finding out the proportion of these people around the world and here in Australia. So the first column that I'll populate with the numbers there is the percentage of that level of engagement around the world. So in the world, only 13% of people, 13 in 100 people, are like Motivated Mike. They're actively engaged. Not engaged, a whopping 63%. That's Snoozy Susie, and I could go either way, Renee. But what about this? 1 in 4 are actively disengaged. Now, this is on a worldwide basis. Let's have a look at now in Australia, and it's a lot better, but in my view, it's still not good enough. 1 in 4 workers in Australia, only 1 in 4 workers in Australia are engaged. They're passionate. They're like Motivated Mike. We've got a whopping 6 out of 10 who are in the middle and could sway either way. And we've got 1 in 6 actively disengaged. Now, that's why we've got some of the problems that we've got in terms of productivity and profitability in our organisations. I was saying to Anne before, Anne asked me how I got into this gig, and I worked as a business consultant for about 15 years. And as a consultant, you get invited into an organisation when there's a problem or an issue or some level of dysfunction, and you help organisations work through those issues. So after about 8 or so years, the penny dropped with me, and I came to a realisation that I could either continue to be a consultant and help overcome their problems, or as Anne said to me, you could kind of prevent the cause, and that is build leadership capability in individuals and organisations, because that's the way we overcome disengagement, through leadership capability. So what about engagement levels? Who cares? Well, you all should care, because Gallup's research continues on to the effects of engagement or disengagement. And what they've shown is organisations that have high levels of engagement, where we've got more motivated Mikes, are more productive. So they get more stuff done. And it's not rocket science, is it? When you've got committed, passionate, motivated people, it follows that we're going to get more stuff done. So we're more productive. What about this? We're more profitable. Gallup's research shows there's direct correlation between high levels of engagement and profitability. And for many of us, that's why we're in business, to make money. Thirdly, what about this? Organisations with high levels of engagement produce higher quality. And to many of us, the quality of our products and services really, really matters. I'm sure that safety matters to most of you. Again, direct correlation between high levels of engagement and organisations that have safer outcomes. Lower absenteeism in organisations that have higher levels of engagement, and they grow faster. So to me, there are compelling reasons why we all should be cared. We all should care about the level of engagement of our employees. Kind of makes sense, doesn't it? Okay. So that's the bad news, but I've got some good news for you. And that is, Greg, please tell us how we can improve engagement. You want to hear that, don't you? I figured. So before I get to that, The largest study into leadership in Australia was called the Study of Australian Leadership, and its report was released just last year. So this data is not even 12 months old. The key finding was this: engagement, culture, trust, and even this measure called intention to quit are all strongly the result of good leadership. So the level of engagement in your organisation links back to the quality of the leadership of your organisation. The state of your culture, this study says, is directly linked back to the leadership in your organisation. Trust, whether you people trust each other or not, and whether there is trust between your workers and your senior management, and I see lots of division, it's almost a them and us in a lot of organisations. And also this measure of intention to quit. Whether your people intend to stay or go is also linked to the quality of your leadership. So it's my contention to you that in order to move from care factor 0 to care factor 100, we've got to do something about developing leadership in our organisations. I want to share with you 5 simple principles about trying to achieve care factor 100. Now, when I say they're simple, they're not easy. Don't get too confused, okay? They're simple to understand, but they're harder to achieve. The first factor in helping your people to become more engaged is that you have to understand you have a responsibility to make your expectations of your people crystal clear. Some of the managers and leaders that I work with expect their people to be mind readers. Are you familiar with this? Okay, so people can't be expected to do their best if they don't know what's expected of them. So I see that when I work with organisations to help achieve this, guess what? Most of the problems almost magically disappear. This is a really important one, and it's hard work. It's not just about having a position description or a job statement. It's more about having a thorough understanding about your expectations of how people behave on a day-to-day basis. The second principle of Care Factor 100 is that, and this is definitely linked to that first one, we need to give honest and regular feedback about people's performance, both good and bad. And again, this is not about the dreaded annual performance review. Are people familiar with that concept? In some organisations, on one day a year, you sit down with your manager and your manager goes, okay, so let's appraise your performance over the last 365 days. And that's all the feedback people get. Well, I'm telling you here that what you need to do if you want to engage your people more is firstly be really clear about what you expect from them, and secondly give them regular and honest feedback about their performance. Regular and honest meaning almost on a weekly basis. It doesn't mean you sit down for an hour, but you, one of the terms I've picked up from a book that really influenced me, The 1 Minute Manager by Kenneth Blanchard, is that you try and catch people doing the right thing. It was kind of the opposite of what we normally think, isn't it? What are we trying to catch them do? The wrong thing. So we try and catch them do the right thing, and we reinforce their behaviour. So we've got make expectations crystal clear and give honest and regular feedback about their performance. If we're doing this, we're seeing levels of engagement increase. The third one, and this is really important too, we want to make sure that we share the vision and purpose, the strategic priorities of the organisation, but also the action plans with our employees. Now, this is a tough one because some of the organisations that I see and some of the organisations that I work with don't have a vision or purpose. They're putting one foot in front of the other each day. So it's hard to engage your people with the vision. Let me ask a quick question. Who likes jigsaw puzzles? We've got about 10 hands up in the room. I'm not with you guys because I detest jigsaw puzzles. I think life's too short for jigsaw puzzles, but whatever floats your boat. Now just imagine, work with me for a moment. If I got the 10 people in the room and said, come with me, we're going to go over in the corner here, I'm going to empty out a 3,000 piece jigsaw puzzle, and our challenge is that we need to work on that and produce the end result as quickly and as efficiently as we can. What's the one thing that I could do that would help that group achieve that objective? Pardon? Show them the picture of where? Which is where? On the top of the box. Every jigsaw puzzle, whether it's for a 3-year-old or for a grown adult, has what on the top? The big picture. Same with your organisation. If you don't engage your people in what the picture on the top of the box is, it's likely that they'll be disengaged. I mentioned Gallup Consulting before. They have this beautiful line that they use in some of their literature. And it's about where individuals have a line of sight between what they do and what the organisation's trying to achieve, they're more likely to be engaged. Now that makes sense, doesn't it? If someone's sitting doing a menial task day in, day out, and they have no clue how this helps the organisation, they're going to just treat it as a menial task. Whereas if you can help them understand what the picture on the top of the box is, it's more likely that they're going to be engaged. The fourth Care Factor 100 principle is about providing opportunities for growth and development. I fundamentally believe that most people want to be the best version of themselves that they can be. And I also fundamentally believe that if you want the best out of your people, it's in your interest to provide them with opportunities to grow and develop and be the best version that they can. Now, I'm not talking about necessarily external opportunities. They can be internal. I'm not necessarily talking about formal versus informal. They can be informal or a combination of any of those. Something that we've been working on that works really well, and it's so simple, is that when a new employee comes in, we buddy them up with someone that's more experienced. It's not a formal mentor process. We just say, hey guys, have a coffee once a week and talk about what's going well for you. Simple as that. That's an opportunity to grow and develop. So it doesn't have to be complex. It doesn't have to be external or costly. We're just going to provide people with opportunities to learn, grow and develop. And the fifth and final principle of Care Factor 100, if you want to engage your people, we've got to try and create an environment where they feel like they belong, where they feel like they're actually part of something bigger than just turning up for 8 hours at a time to earn a living to feed their kids. We've got to try and create an environment where people feel valued and recognised for their contribution, where people feel that they're actually part of a team and we're working on something that's important together. That's where they feel engaged. When you put those 5 things together, and the book is actually going to flesh out how to achieve those 5 principles by lots of practical applications. Nathan and I have been involved in presenting over 40 of these talks in the last probably 9 months now. And at the end of each talk, I'm not going to do this tonight, I'm not going to give you any homework, but at the end of each talk, we've given them a template that says, what would you like to see happen here under these 5 headings? How could this organisation improve your level of engagement? Now, we've gathered all of those up. I think there are about 500 responses, and we're currently going through and summarising that for the book. So there they are, the 5 Care Factor 100 principles. Make your expectations crystal clear. Give people feedback, regular and honest, about their performance. Help them understand what the big picture of the organisation is and involve them in that. Give them opportunities to grow and develop. And finally, create a team environment where people feel like they belong. Who's this? So Richard Branson. He's famous for a lot of things, isn't he? But he's also famous for his quotes. And often his quotes are provocative, as is this one. Richard Branson says, clients do not come first. Employees come first, because if you take care of your employees, they will take care of your clients. Now, I'm a bit embarrassed to admit this, but for almost my whole professional career, I've been banging the table saying, clients come first, clients come first. And we've got to be a customer-driven organisation. And while that is true, Branson is just poking us and prodding us, saying, you know what, a great way to serve your clients is to serve your employees. Kind of makes sense, doesn't it? We've got to get rid of this guy. And in fact, I don't believe this guy deserves to work in any of your organisations. We've got to turn, I could go either way, Renee and Snoozy Susie. We've got to somehow magically turn them into motivated Mike. People who are passionate and enthusiastic and whose care factor for your organisation is high. And if we can achieve that, guess what comes with it? Better profitability, productivity, safety, lower absenteeism, all of those good things. This talk has been about helping you become happier through your involvement in the workplace. But you know what, it extends further than that, because if we can help people be happier in their workplace, in the work that they do, they're going to go home and be happier with their kids and their families, aren't they? And I think that's a really important link to leadership. How does all this, theory translate into action? Well, the book that I wrote a couple of years ago is called The Road Rules for Leadership, and you can see that there it says, it's a simple, practical guide to effective leadership. I did a Google search for a blog that I wrote recently, and I simply Googled definition of leadership. How many search results do you reckon I got? 35,000? I got 340 million. Somehow we have let leadership get too complex, right? So in this book that I've written, there are 21 road rules for leadership, and it's not the end of the story. It's just the beginning, but it gives people simple, practical, straightforward ways to become better leaders. I was inspired by this bloke. Some of you will recognise Wayne Bennett. Many years ago I saw him speak, and I was struck by the simplicity and clarity of his message. So I asked him to write the foreword for my book, which he did. And he actually says this in the foreword: keep leadership as simple as possible. Make it so simple that everybody knows what they need to do. And that's certainly a mantra that I use in all the teaching that I do. Under the banner of Licence to Lead Leadership Development Program, we do mentoring, speaking and training, but it's all linked back to helping organisations create environments where their people care more, and we get all of the great benefits from that. And it's essentially about this: helping organisations and people be happier through engagement. I really want to thank you for the opportunity of coming and talking tonight. I've been mindful of not keeping you too long. I literally talk all day about this stuff. And if you'd like to see that or hear that, you can come to one of our workshops. I've really appreciated the short period of time that Gerard has invited me to share with you. And the invitation is that you can connect with me on social media, but I can guarantee 3 things if you connect with me on social media. You will not see photos of my breakfast. You will not see any cat videos. And you will only get simple, practical, straightforward leadership advice. So thanks for the opportunity of coming to having a chat. And Gerard's asked me to open the floor up for you guys to ask some questions of me. So please do that. Thank you. Who's got a question? Yes. So Gerard said to me, don't mention politics, sex or religion, which, you know, you go down any of those paths, you're in trouble. I couldn't agree more. Not just on a national basis, perhaps on a worldwide basis. I facetiously sent, he's not Prime Minister anymore, but an ex-Prime Minister whose initials are TA, I facetiously sent him a copy of my book a couple of years ago. Never got a reply, funnily enough. I couldn't agree more. Our leaders, our government leaders need to be great leaders, and I don't see a lot of it. Can I leave it at that? A political comment, can I leave it at that? Yes?
So in terms of your leadership, I've discussed Sir Richard Branson and Wayne Bennett. Is there anybody else that you idolise from a leadership perspective?
Well, Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi. In November 2015, I spoke at a conference in Mumbai, in India, and I went to Gandhi's house. And on the wall of Gandhi's house is one of my favourite quotes. I took a photo of it. And this is a quote that I trot out all the time, particularly when I'm doing one-on-one leadership mentoring. And it's simply this: you must be the change you want to see in others. So a lot of senior leaders that I work with are really, really frustrated with their people won't change. And, you know, that frustration comes through when I'm working with them. And And I don't like it when I say, you know, can I remind you of a quote by Gandhi who